Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Track with Daniel Blair. That's me. Thank you guys for tuning in, and a huge shout out to Cooper Tires. Thank you guys so much for being part of this series. It's been awesome so far, and I don't expect any less in this interview. And for me, this one's going to be maybe the most fun because I go back the furthest with this guy in a lot of weird ways, and I think you're all going to like it. But we'll get in and out of a lot of different conversations that I think you guys are going to enjoy, and I'll just bring him in now so we can get going. Budman, Buddy Antunez, welcome to the show.
What's up, Ring Bear Daniel Blair? How you doing?
That's where I wanted to start. I want to start right there. Look, let's go back in time to your wedding night.
Yeah.
I want you to let everybody know who the best dancer was and who had all the bridesmaids all over him all night long. Just go ahead and answer.
Well, this is true. So it was Ring Bear Daniel Blair. He was the man that night. He was short in stature, but tall and fun.
Still short in stature. That hasn't changed. I don't have as much fun as I did then. But I'll tell you this. Watching you and Denny Stevenson that night, that changed things for me. I saw things I might have been too young to see at the age of like 11 or 12, and it changed me forever. So thank you for that.
Well, good. I'm glad that we can influence you in a positive light, I hope, and show you the right side of fun at times.
I've learned how to manage the fun as you guys did that night.
Absolutely.
Buddy, I don't know where we're going with it. There's so much to talk about. We got the 5 Arenacross Championships, which seemed like 100 at the time. It was just like never ending, just didn't stop winning. I do want to talk about coaching. You worked with Weston Pike, Eli Tomac, Justin Barsha, and you got a new group now. I want to talk about your amateur career into Supercross. Where do you want to go, buddy? And by the way, no pressure, but my mom is watching.
Oh, no.
My mom loves you. And no pressure, but mom's watching.
Hi, Denise. I will do my best to make Daniel look good.
Okay. Let's start with the coaching, because I know you're coaching riders right now. Carson Mumford, Brandon Hartraff. These are younger riders that are coming into the sport. Brandon's, he's on his 3rd or 4th year now, so he's got some comfort. Carson Mumford is rookie year. How is that going for you as far as coaching these guys that are at this early part of their career? Because you lived it. It was different times, but you lived these early years where it's just the bright lights are on. Like, what kind of coaching is going on with these guys right now that have the talent but don't really have that experience that you have?
So that's the thing that I like to bring to the table is going back to Weston is the coaching and having them understand certain things they need to do on the bike, and I always call it tools in their tool bag to be able to use on race week and race night. The other part that I really enjoy is being there as a mentor. Obviously through my career, I've made mistakes. I did things right, and I really try to help mentor on that side of things to be able to help them make the most they can of this short span of a racing career. When you're in it, you think it's this big, but when you get done racing, you look back and it was this small, right? So, so I really try to bring that side of it. Going back to my career when I was, we didn't have coaching in our day. It wasn't a big thing, but one thing that we did is we learned from watching, and you see, Jeremy doing this or Brian Swink doing that, those types of things. And then I actually, in my career, I had a guy named Brian Manley, who was a really good privateer, and he took me under his wing and mentored and taught me some things. And to this day, I still use some of those coaching methods with my guys. So, I see the value in having someone teach you some core things throughout racing fundamentally that will help you, through the whole time you spend on a dirt bike. And I'm big on paying it forward too. So I've been down the road of, my time at JGR and working with the top of the top. And then now that I'm came back to this, just the coaching side of it, I knew I wanted to kind of reform it and spend times with Carson Mumford, Brandon Hartraff, Martin Costello, those guys that are still learning and growing and all that. That's the fun. That's what I really enjoy, because my time with Weston and Justin and Brayton and all that early in his career, setting him on that path was something that I really look back on and really am proud of.
Buddy, there's two sides of coaching. There's the on the bike stuff, the technique, the fundamentals. Then there's the mental side, which, I mean, they go hand in hand when the gate drops. But when you're at the practice track, you really got to focus on both of those, sometimes separate. I talked to Brandon Hartraff right when you started working with him, and he said, like, in the first day, just some of these little techniques that he was avoiding or not acknowledging. And you watch him ride, and you're like, he rides borderline perfect.
Yeah.
But then he says, you come in and, like, screw everything up, and you're doing this. What's it like when you work with someone like that looks so polished, but then you got to find the nitty gritty and find where maybe his weaknesses are and expose those to these guys that just, it looks so good, but you find problems? Like, how hard is that with these young guys that, you know, that they're at that stage?
It's really, really, it's tough, to be honest with you. But one thing that I have been able to do is watch someone ride for a little bit and find that little detail that they're missing, you know, and it just kind of comes to me and it hits me as a first instinct. You watch him ride, you see this and that, and you go, he rides really well, but if he knew how to do, you know, this technique, it's going to just make him more confident and him understand some things as well, you know. And then I was a little blown away going to Brandon, for instance, him being at his level, that he didn't know some of these things I was talking about, you know. And I think it becomes sometimes with the pro guys that they're so into their moto, so doing this and repetitive, that it's not that they don't actually sometimes know it, but sometimes they just forget that small detail. And that one detail could make the difference of, you know, fifth and third.
Makes sense. Like you said, you're looking at a pretty polished rider, but 1, 2, maybe 3 details changes everything for somebody, and it finds that new speed or the new confidence. I mean, I guess my question is, right now, with like a month to go in the season, are you still working technique with those guys? Are you working on the fitness side? Because I know you're huge on that. Is it the mental? Like, how do you balance those 3 today if you're at the track with Brandon or Carson Mumford, when there's so many things that have to be buttoned up right now?
Yeah. So I try to not overdo things. So I try to, I always say to everybody that starts with me, I chip at everything. You know, you try to throw 15 things at a guy all the time, they're just going to be scrambled eggs, you know, especially dirt bike riders, you know, that they, you know, they can just get scrambled pretty easy.
We're already scrambled eggs, like the whole time. We're head cases, man.
Pretty much. So it's chipping at it. And, you know, I go back to my time spent with John Tomac when he was training me and helping me with things. He, you know, helped me learn to work on this, then go this. So separate your days a little bit, you know, so you're not constantly on the same, just repetitive motion. So we have days that we're specifically working on sections and technique. We have days where they're doing their motos, and I'm also trying to give them little things to think about, you know, as they're doing their moto, you know. Try not to have it all just be hammerfest, you know. There's a time and a place for that, but we're building right now, and I think through the later stages of December, then we start turning the screws up and really start maximizing our speed, and everything should be on point there by that time.
You know, buddy, I know the story with you and the Tomac family and how that all went down. Obviously, you first being the student.
Yep.
Then you eventually becoming the coach to Eli. But not everybody knows that. Can you kind of tell that story on just how you fit in with the Tomac family in that timeline?
Yeah, so it's a fun story and really, really neat. When me and my wife first moved to Temecula, we kind of had an old friend of mine. His name was Eric Carter. He's a BMX guy. And he hung out with these 2 boys, Rich and Gary Hausman. And I started riding bicycles. They were kind of my introduction into training on bicycles. Before that, I was just running and lifting weights. Anyhow, you know, we were doing rides, and I knew that the 2 Hausman brothers rode for Tomac when he had his bike downhill bike, you know, company and his bicycles. So then they went away to Johnny's for a camp, and they came back and they were just next level. And I'm like, man. I said, I need to do something like that for my racing, you know? And so the Hausmans connected me with the Tomacs. I talked to John. We went up to Colorado, and I did a, 10-day camp or something up there with riding, you know, bicycling, all that. And Johnny and Kathy allowed me a little space. And we had this guy come in and build this Supercross, you know, kind of a, you know, one of those backdoorsy kind of Supercross. It wasn't a fully flat pad. We just kind of used what we did, So then from there, when I got back there, I would try to help Eli a little bit out here and there, with some riding when I wasn't doing my riding. And then it kind of evolved to when I come back before my camp, we'd have 8 or so people around there, and we'd run a little school and coaching Eli, as well with the group. And then it morphed into, Johnny doing all my physical training stuff off the bike. And also, Johnny was a great rider. So he was knowledgeable on, all, kind of the whole scope of it. So then from there, it was just kind of that deal. When I'd go to train, I'd work with Eli, work with some guys when he was 8 or 9. And I remember this around that age and watching Eli and the Tomacs going, "You think he'll make it?" And I said, "Absolutely." You could just see in Eli then his skills and his mindset and how much. And the cutest thing is I would go ride. Eli would sit off to the side of the track. I would stop riding. Eli would go and ride the track. So he wouldn't even ride with me on the track at that age. He was intimidated. Now I think it would be the other way around.
Yeah. Maybe even more lopsided now.
Even more lopsided now, for sure. But, they taught me, Johnny and Kathy and even E, they taught me so many things of the values and just that other life, outside of the big city of Temecula or, LA County, whatever. And, in our camps, when we go there, you'd be on a rest and you'd hear they did alfalfa and hay. You'd hear that horn honk for someone to get hay. You got up from whatever you're doing and you went and bucked bells and loaded the truck. And really a great experience, great times. And, kind of set sail for that to a few years down the road. When Eli got on big bikes, I started working with him again more, because there was a little period there where, he's kind of going back and forth with Texas. And I think working with Naide at that time too, a little bit.
So, obviously it's got to be weird, not weird, but let's just say weird, cool, when you're watching Eli win a Supercross championship especially after the trials that he went through for a couple of years of being very close but not getting it. Was it cool watching him at Salt Lake just cross the finish line and be like number one, like got that thing? And that this was a little kid who used to sit on the side just all quiet, and now he's number one in the world. Like
number one in the world, yes. It's you have no idea how it is, like, even for my wife Shelly, my son Boston, my daughter Bailey, like the whole family, like we're just so connected with them, even if we haven't been, communicating every weekly, there's still that feeling where you're rooting for Eli, you're yelling at the TV, telling him to go, and you're so happy for just everything. And I go back to them asking me that question, and it's like, it was a bold predicament, but you could see it.
Is he going to make it?
He's going to make it. Yeah, he's going to make it.
Yeah.
Number one, and, on the other side of it too, just going back to Eli a little bit, that mentally we all know Eli, he struggled sometimes, and so to watch him overcome that and win that championship in Supercross, that was huge for me too, just on a personal level.
You see it at different times when a rider is like just banging their head against the wall trying to get it, and they can't get it, and then they just fall off. With him, it was stubborn pursuit, just didn't stop. But that's going to go into my next question is you look at the sport and where it's at, and there's these trainers and there are programs all over. Their situation is unique. You don't see a father and son stick it out that long. You don't see a kid stay at home in Durango, Colorado. You don't see that program like anywhere. And I don't think, statistically, I would say it probably doesn't work, but for them it works. Is that come from John? Is that just John being a good manager of this whole thing?
Well, here's how the dynamic works, and I believe this wholeheartedly. Everything that Eli did, it came from Eli wanting to do it. I remember being in the kitchen and Eli coming in and him going, "Pop, what do I got to do next?" And Johnny would go, this, and this. Me and Johnny still be in there having coffee or lunch or whatever. Eli'd run out and do all his stuff. So there was never any kind of, let's face it, a lot of the dads in our sport can be overbearing, on top of the kids too much. And I believe it doesn't allow the kids to have their own feelings towards things. If they had a bad race, dad's mad, so kid shuts down. If the dad takes kind of the role, let's just use Johnny for instance, and then Eli feels all these emotions, and Eli decides what he wants to get out of it. And that's where I think that Johnny was great. There was never any kind of drive from him. All the drive came from Eli. So I think that helped him to become the rider that he is.
And allow that type of relationship to continue to work into his mid to late 20s. That's the only way it would work, is that way.
Absolutely. And that dynamic of that too, with them too, is being in Durango and all that, there's nothing around. So they were around each other a lot, so traveling the races and all that. And so, it's pretty impressive, and I think that's just a connection. I think it's the passion that they all had to try to just give their best effort. And I think it all came from Eli and Johnny managing it on the right terms for Eli to thrive.
Buddy, you've worked with Weston Pike. We'll get into him a little bit. Justin Barsha is another one that you've worked with. This year during Supercross, Eli and Justin they just couldn't stop with each other. When you're watching them, and both of them very personally, mm-hmm. What are you saying to the TV screen, or like when you see them arguing, like what are you thinking in your head when you see them?
I can't believe it sometimes, it's like, what are you guys doing? Sometimes I'm rooting for Eli to be more aggressive with Justin. And sometimes I'm wanting Justin just to calm down and just be, be a little bit more, have a little more thought process to it. So it's definitely, it's a weird vibe for sure. But, with Justin, he was a lot of fun to work with. And he's a great kid. His energy, everything that he does is a lot of fun to be around, and his dedication and heart is huge. And I totally enjoyed my time. And it's like everyone's talking about, got to smooth him out. You got to get him off the clutch. You got to get his RPMs down. And you do have to do all those things. But I always try to tell him you need a little bit of bam bam still in there as well. So it was I think a tough a balance, but with my time with him, we found a little balance and won some races. And one thing that I got to do with Justin, which is, I'll remember forever, is just going to the Motocross of Nations with him in France. And I remember the second day, he was struggling a little bit with something, and we went out in practice and ran drills through practice, not even worried about, I think we had no clutch lap. We had some feet on the pegs lap. We did just some sideways stuff just to kind of break it up. And he went out and, won on the day. Unfortunately, we didn't win the trophy, but Justin did his job on that day. So I was very proud, and that was a lot of fun.
I'll give you a little bit of an analogy here. In football, Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots, is one of the best coaches maybe ever. And what they say about him is that he understands his players and he kind of conforms to them to get the best out of them instead of telling them to conform to him. When you talk about Barsha like that, everyone says the same thing. Stop revving the bike out, do this, do that. Do you feel like the best him is just to polish him instead of, because whenever you try to change him, he just is like not the same. Do you feel like is that what you're getting at with him, is that if we can just tighten up him but allow him to be him, that's when he thrives the most?
Absolutely, 100%. You just nailed that on the head. For sure. Yep. I agree.
Okay, so what do you do then when you have a Carson Mumford and a Brandon Hartranft who they're facing their own battles from a technical standpoint, a mental standpoint, a physical? Is that hard for you sometimes when you've got these guys and you're having to do two different things at once because these guys require a different outlook?
Yes, so that is true, and you got to adapt to your athlete, I believe, because each one's different, and Carson could be thriving in one area and Brandon is not. So, you try to help Carson out in the area he needs to, try to get Brandon going in the area he needs to, and hopefully at the end of the day they start to, it all comes together. But mentally and physicality too with the riders, like I can't make Carson ride like Brandon and Brandon ride like Carson or this or that, but I can show them techniques that work across the board for all of them. So it just, styles change a little bit, and then how some techniques are easier for one guy and not another. I don't know. I think you've done a little bit of coaching, right, Daniel, here and there? Coaching.
Well, I've been coaching my own kid for 4 years, and I got to send him to Budman, dude.
Send him up. But coaching a tall guy is difficult, their movements are different.
Hey, if I send you my kid, you don't have to worry about that. He's my kid.
That's perfect.
You got to worry about the big
perfect. So Brandon being on the taller side, sometimes with positions you put him in, it's a different, it's a little bit different. So you got to kind of, I've found with myself with taller guys, you got to kind of work a little bit differently on some of the techniques, and with any rookie going to Carson a little bit, getting them comfortable in the whoops, and going back, that was when I started working with Eli and Supercross. Just going back to this real quick, that's what they had me come out to do, was start helping Eli in the whoops, and then it morphed into us going and all that. But so Carson getting them better in the whoops, Brandon moving up to the 450, it's having him be confident enough to believe that he can run with those guys and have it all come together. Speed wise, these guys are all really, really good. So it comes down to the details, it comes down to fitness, and it comes down to where your mental state is each time you get behind the gate.
I want to pivot to you now, and I'll start with a little story. So again, I'm the ring bearer in the wedding.
Yep.
Just a kid.
Best dancer at the wedding too. Don't forget.
Best dancer, bridesmaids, all right here. Eventually, though, I turned 16, turned pro, and I raced Arenacross.
Yep.
Arco Arena. I'm sure you're familiar with Arco Arena.
Yeah, love that.
I'm guessing you probably won there 20 or 30 times. But I remember being on the line and being on the front row at 16 years old, and there's Uncle Budman.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, like I was competitive. I wanted to do well, but I was like, this is Buddy's world. A lot of respect. But I remember I have a bad moto. I ended up being a lapper in a main, and you came up behind me. I think I blocked you for about 1/8 of a second, which was too much for you. And you came and yelled at me after the race and just blew me out. And I was like, Uncle Buddy, like, I didn't do it on purpose, man, but you were so gnarly in those days. Like, it was domination. Like, just take me back to that time and what was going on with you in that chapter of your life where it was, dude, it was win at all costs. Even got to yell at the nephew sometimes, man.
Yeah. The mindset went to a different space after a couple of championships for sure. And, the focus that I knew that it took to win them, the things that I needed to do. And in an Arenacross, sorry, Daniel, but moving a lapper within 1/8 and a second is very important. Because if it's like family, my mom was upset when I told her what you said to me. Denise, I'm sorry, but the helmet's on.
I had to move.
So if it would have taken me half a second to get by, a Mad Mike Jones might have stuffed me in the next corner. Danny could have been by, who knows?
Half second more, Mad Mike might have took us both out.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Or rollerball Rusty Holland. That guy, he could take two of them out at once.
Yep.
It's just the mindset that you get in, and you get in that mode and the passion and the want to win and just continue your success. It becomes at a very heightened level, and my nephew could not stand in the way of that.
Justin Brayton was just on the show with us, and he said that you would like close your eyes and you would visualize the entire race. And I've tried that. I don't have the discipline to get past like 30 seconds, but he said that you were just just an animal. And to your point, was it one of those things for you when you won a championship, maybe got your second? Was it just the pressure of giving it up? And
yes.
Giving that title away that made you so intense? Because it's like you just didn't want, like, Cooper Webb told me right here on Beyond the Track, he can't stand the fact that he lost that title. Like,
Yeah.
It's killing him.
It was your biggest fear. When you had the championship and you had the number one plate, that was your biggest fear, was losing it. I agree with him 100%. And so, yeah, you just did not want to give up what you worked so hard and what you on top of it. You didn't want nobody out there, somebody else giving that speech at the end of it, collecting the, all the accolades for everything. And it really, that, going back to what Cooper said, that really drove me, to not lose that championship at all cost.
So when you're in Arenacross, it was a different world because everyone was way closer together. You're essentially like sharing a locker room with everybody. And a lot of those guys are your friends. You're talking Denny Stevenson and just go through the list. Was it hard for you to be that competitive and driven and have to be forceful? Like in Arenacross, you had to move people when they were also your buddies, but at the same time, like, how many times did you hit Denny? Like
a bunch. And to be honest with you, I didn't have a problem with it. It was like, as soon as my helmet went on, I would go and get into my own little space, in the arena, find a little side hall or something like that. And just like Justin said, visualize and just get into that space where it was about me and the checkered flag and nothing in between. Right. And some of that visualization came from my time spent with Jeremy McGrath on Team Peak, and you can understand, me looking back on it, you can understand why he was a champion he was. I would go to him before every main event. We'd sit there and I'd say, what do you think? And he would literally go, it's going to go like this and this and this is what I think. Like, he had such a mindset for understanding what needed to happen in the main event, or what, where it needed to go, this, just a really good outlook on it. So some of that visualization was coming back to what I learned from Jeremy on Team Peak, and it helped me to win the championships, continue to win them, because I got into that mindset of trying to have a plan. Like, I didn't only have a plan for the whole shot. You're always going to the line wanting the whole shot, but I also had a plan if I got a 5th place start. Like, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. I even had one more, dang it, you didn't want to think about it, but what if you got a 10th place start, And I think some of that is why I was able to position myself correctly and not have something go really wrong, because my mind was always thinking about the plan and executing it, and then if I was in 7th place in a 250 main off the start, I didn't hit the panic button. It's like, get one guy at a time and try to get up there. And then at certain points in the season too, you knew you had one guy sitting in 2nd place in points and 3rd place is way off. I just got to catch a guy in 2nd place or get myself ahead of him. So those things developed after, championships 1, 2, 3, and then by 4 and 5, you have an understanding of what it takes to do them. You have a blueprint, if you will, and I always had a point in the series too, where it's like, I think Guthrie, Oklahoma was always we're going for wins now, up to Guthrie. If the wins came, they were there, but if not, let's try to get podiums, fists, just keep yourself going. But at Guthrie, we started to hang it out a little bit more and start to push for wins a little bit more. And it seemed to be a good kind of benchmark in the series for me to start to go,
Ricky Carmichael always says, Daytona is where it really begins. And that's kind of like the run to the final. Was that kind of like the same thing for you? Guthrie it's like, look, from round 1 to here, stack points, take what you can give, but don't get in trouble, stay in it. And then by then, yourself, your bike, your competition. Is that when you would just tighten the bolts and go, Absolutely. Now I'm taking this thing?
Absolutely. 100%. And it was a good benchmark and a good mental switch as well with all of it. So absolutely.
Looking back on those times, and I'm assuming Mad Mike Jones has got to be an option here, but who, looking back, give me some names or one specific that just was that thorn for you. I mean, obviously the success is there. You won the titles, but they weren't easy. Who was just the pain, man, who just was the one who maybe made you stay up a little bit extra at night trying to figure out who would be that guy?
Well, I don't know if he made me stay up a little extra at night, but the one thorn, I can go with thorn, is Jeff Willow.
Disco.
Disco. I did not like that guy to beat me.
Why?
Well, he had a different approach to the way he went about handling things, and I worked my butt off. So, his talent on the bike was great. So I never passed him without hitting him. Like if I'm going by you, I'm hitting you. Like I'm moving you somehow, some way. That's just the way I rode him. I had some great battles with him as well. But the way his approach to racing and all that worked for him, didn't work for me, but it also drove me nuts if he beat me.
I learned something from him in Arenacross. He taught me the old trick called, that little period between practice and qualifying in the night program where they're
Yep.
prepping the track and the lights are out. He taught me that you go out on the track and on the left side of the whoops, you build a nice triple line and no one will know about it. And you just come out heat number 1 and start 3-3ing up the inside because then you could protect the corner.
Right.
Did you ever deal with any of those frustrations?
No, no, but I'll tell you this. I used to watch him because one thing he would do is he would figure out how to get around that track as smooth as possible because he had to. He
had a more effortless approach to figuring out the track. How could I not exert?
Right, exactly. So I learned from him. I'm admitting it now, but at the time, all I wanted to do was, pull that thorn out of my,
and send them into the grandstands.
Pretty much.
When you look back on that time, what can you take from that as just the overall? Obviously, you have the success, you made a lot of money, you got great memories, but when you just look back at that chapter, as we put a period on it, what's the biggest thing you could take away from those years, winning Arenacross championships, traveling the world, making that money, battling with your friends, partying with your friends? Just take me back to that chapter. What's the thing that you take from it the most?
The biggest thing that I take away from it is, one, the love that we all had riding our dirt bikes, and 2, the sense of family that we had in Arenacross to put on a good show. Like we really did try to give them a good show, all the way to the Dash for Cashes, the jump contests. I believe that everybody in that paddock wanted to go out there and win, but they also wanted to go out there and give the fans and everything they could. And that was just a fun period of my life. Take everything, out of it as far as money and all those things. Those are great. But just being in that position where you're doing that well, riding your dirt bike, was just, you look back and those are the good times,
When that chapter came to an end, you went back to Supercross. And if you look at a lot of these Arenacross riders and their careers, they either start in Arenacross and then leave and don't come back, or they'll, start in Supercross, go to Arenacross and never go back. You started in Supercross, had success, went to Arenacross, had that awesome chapter, but then decided on your own, I'm not done with Supercross. I want another shot at this thing. Take me back to that time and that decision to just pivot back to Supercross and make another run.
Yeah, at that point in time in my career, I wanted to challenge myself as an athlete, and see if I could do it. And the opportunity was there to work with Roger and Ian and be a part of Travis Pastrana was on the team, Kevin Windham. It was a really good team, and that didn't play into my decision, but looking back on it and going and doing that, it was a great year. And as an athlete, I had to work my butt off. I think for the season there, me and Johnny started my training in July, just to be ready for the East Coast starting in February. And I think that going to the Arenacross, I think why some of the Arenacross guys didn't have success going back to Supercross, it wasn't that they didn't have the ability. It's just they didn't understand how much harder Supercross was as far as the physicality and, being prepared. So that was one thing that I knew going back to Supercross for that year is I was going to be prepared. And I was, podium the first one was great. And the crazy thing is I should have ended up third in the series that year, but I fumbled the last round. That's on me. But coming into outdoors, I really started to hit my stride. I think for like four or five motos, I didn't even finish outside the top 5. Got a podium in there, and then I was looking like I was going to come back the next season on the factory team, but Roger wanted to take that Lalouse guy, and I remember sitting in Minnesota with Roger and Ray Tetherton Buzzard, and them telling me this, and I'd raced Lalouse and literally smoked past him in the whoops, and I'm like, I said, you're making a mistake, but at that point in time, it's like Arenacross was not a bad thing for me at the time, so it was like, going back to that wasn't anything. Did I want to stay in Supercross, motocross? I wanted another year for sure, because I was starting to get comfortable and understand the guys I was racing on. And on paper, I should have been a good, challenge for the championship next year. Anyhow, Lalouse didn't do anything. and I went back to Arenacross, and I ended up getting injured before that series that year, which made it tough. But all in all, the fact that I was able to do that and come a circle like that for my career and personally, it was a great moment.
So, buddy, I'm gonna go back in time way further again. As I said, I watched you guys party on your wedding night. That was eye-opening for me. Mm-hmm. You were also the first fist fight I ever watched with my own eyes in person. Do you maybe remember where that might have been and how that happened?
Was that Tommy Clowers at World Mini?
The Race of Champions,
Race
dude.
Champions.
Oh, another day where I saw things I may have been too young to see.
Man, I could not. That was the one race, me being so good on a mini bike, and luckily to have R&D building me great equipment, and that one going to the Race of Champions, we're all on the same bike. I really wanted to win that, and it seemed like something happened each time that I couldn't close the deal on that. Anyhow, yeah, Tommy Clowers had raced since 60s, right? So we come into that Race of Champions, and you probably remember the track. It came there by the tower, and it funneled into that right-hander, and I came up the inside and just moved him. And so then what did he do? He waited on the track and did something. So the next moto, I literally came out and just cleaned him out. We pull over on the side of the track, and I remember he had one of those Arai helmets. You remember that had the
the detachable one, the open close one.
I took that thing and smashed it. I mean, we weren't going to hurt each other that bad. We had helmets on. But, I was just that mad, like, over that race, and I actually think Tommy was sitting on the side of the track when I came around, and I pulled over to him. Like, it was just going to happen. But the crazy thing everybody doesn't know about, and a lot of people these days don't know my father, which you do. Big Bud, he was very passionate about things as well, and obviously, in his mini cycle and amateur stuff that time, parents are super involved too much at times.
Yeah, a little bit.
They had to. And I don't remember so well as my dad told me, but they had to literally get a police escort to get Mr. Clowers off of the property.
You guys were kids. That's the best part. This Race of Champions is like all the mini bike kids. We're going to put you all on KX85s. Yep. They're bone stock, but It's just the kids. You're still like 14 or 15.
Oh, yeah.
And to have police escort and all that,
Oh, yeah.
It was great. Is that where Weston learned his boxing moves from you?
Man. Oh.
I think Weston probably already knew his. I think he had his already.
He did. I remember one time we were messing around and still feeling pretty froggy, and I started messing with Weston. He grabbed my wrist so hard, I'm like, I'm out. Like, just we're messing around, he just grabbed. I mean, that guy, I don't even think he knows his own strength. I mean, but did you see him hit his helmet? Like, he hit him so hard in the helmet. He was like, I mean, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
It was. And, you know, you're saying the helmet usually is a protective thing. Not much in
Not
that
much,
one.
no. And I remember before that too, he was all fired up and I said, Vince Freeze is not who we're here worried about. Like, leave it alone. And he just couldn't, you know.
So to be fair, I don't think that was the first run in.
No, it wasn't at all, you know. But, you know how it is when the helmet's on and some of that stuff happens to you, that the switch just, it's almost like you don't have control. You're not sitting there thinking like, oh, Budman told me to leave this alone. That's not happening.
Hold on. Before I make this decision, let me think back to what Buddy told me right before the race. No,
that's not happening at all. And to be honest with you, like all the stuff that in our sport and how it is, like, it sucks that it happened, but it is what happens when people get mad.
Yeah. Well, especially probably too when you work as hard as you do and you got everything invested and it's all supposed to like come together that night. Like, you know, like you were saying, it's we look at everything so weird in this sport, but it's just, I think the emotions pour out in that situation because you're so invested, and then it's like, now this moto's ruined. Like, I get it, and I think everybody has to learn how to control those moments. But
I get it too, and you do from having your helmet on. But there's so many people that haven't been in that situation that don't get it as well. So, you know, at the end of the day, bum for Weston, bum for Freeze that he got his head pounded in like that. But you know, the emotions just happen. You know.
Hey, so working with Weston it's got to be an interesting chapter for you too. I remember the first time I watched him ride Supercross, and I knew he was a good outdoor rider, kind of coming up amateur. I think he did good at Glen Helen maybe, and I was like, whew, this Supercross thing is going to be rough for him. And I personally, at that time, I wouldn't have guessed that he would go on to do what he did and get on the podium. What was it like for you working with him? Again, someone that was a project and ultimately, like, God, figured it out.
So it was a lot of fun. And I remember, like I was saying to you, Weston moved dirt when I started working with him. But he really just didn't have an understanding for certain things, you know. Let's take training, for instance. You know, at the time I think he was like 220 pounds. And he thought he was training. And all I did was, you know, go, this is what you should be doing at this time, you know, this and that. And it should have you cut weight. He went from 220 to, let's say, 207 the first year, you know. And then the small details that we're able to get to him on the bike, you know, just hitting jumps without hanging your wheel, you know, little simple things like that. Learning how to get his right leg off the rear brake a little earlier for right-handers. You know, he was already strong in the whoops. That wasn't, you know, a super problem. Working on how where he stood, you know, how long he stood coming into turns, where he transitioned to sit down, you know, all these little details started to add up for Weston. And then, you know, the fact that he lost some weight and his training ethic was always great. And his heart.
So he just did he just not know how at first? Like he worked hard, but didn't do it right?
He didn't do it right. Yeah. And he thought he was. So I'll give you, for instance, you know, maybe he was doing 4 hours on the bicycle for the week. I said, no, you need to be up around 8 or 10, you know? So it was a little tweak like that, you know, and plan your days out. I said, you don't need to be, you know, hammering your motorcycle one day and then going bicycling, like ride, bike, you know, just a structure, you know, almost a structure, helped him start to put things together. So then what happened from there is Weston started to get confident, you know, and then Weston always thrived on, you know, at that time, beating the factory guys or giving them fits, you know. I remember some guys coming up to pass him, you know, and it took him 2 or 3 laps, you know, and it should have taken him a lap, but he just had that much drive in him to try to stay ahead of him. So those little simple details just started to add up for Weston. He started to gain some confidence through that period in time. Also, you know, if he's not training enough hours on the bicycle, he wasn't doing enough time on the motorcycle. So that increased, and I think that is a big thing that is lost sometimes in the world is your motorcycle is your biggest tool in your tool bag for making yourself better. All the other stuff that you do with the riding or bicycling, gym, all that's just to help make your dirt bike riding better, not the other way around. So
kind of like fill the gaps more than anything, but not to replace the time on the bike, right?
Right, exactly. The time on your bike's your best time spent, always from when we were kids riding, which made you better, all the way till now. So anything you do off the bike isn't something that should really be overkill. It should be something that you're doing that helps make you better on the bike, so you don't need to be the strongest bicycler out of the 30-man group when you go on a group ride. You just need to be as fit as you need to be able to handle your dirt bike the way you need to.
Makes sense. So again, for just modifying a hard work ethic, but just getting it right, and just so that he could flourish, because like he's like hitting a wall, kind of like working hard but not seeing anything new.
Exactly. So then coming into 2015, when he got the JGR ride, the goal was to get under 200 pounds for the season, and he did it. And once he got to 197, that was a whole nother like moment for him, mentally, and then he just started to thrive. The crazy thing is he was so fast at Phoenix that year and almost got a podium, and ended up fourth, and then injured himself. And had that not happened, he might have had a few more podiums that year.
Yeah, it was coming together, like no question. You could see it too. And I think to your point, the confidence mixed to probably with the size, he seemed like he got more agile. Yes. Every year. He detached from the bike more as he got lighter. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, for sure. And he still had Weston moments. We used to have a whoa Weston, that was kind of the thing. And he still had those moments, but it goes back to the Bam Bam side of it. Like that's just Weston, so you there's going to be some of those, but how do we make everything else, those other details, make sense so that the Woe Westons still happen, but then he understands them, and then maybe the Woe Westons come down to a little bit smaller
over time. Just like to slowly like work those out of the program. Just takes time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Buddy, JGR is. I mean, we got the news now. JGR will be with us this year in 2021, and from an industry standpoint, I think everyone's bummed. Not only just because you don't want to lose a team, but those guys were cool. You were one of those guys. It was just there's something different about the vibe over there. For you, you moved to North Carolina. I mean, you made an investment to get out there as things were still in the okay stages, and then they started to kind of fall apart with the team and everything. How hard was that for you, not only on a personal side, but from a fan of the sport side, seeing that this iconic team having those struggles and kind of being on life support there a little bit at the end, and now just not having them for at least this year. Maybe they'll be back, but just from a personal and professional standpoint, what was that like for you those last few years?
Yeah. So from the professional standpoint, the things that we were doing out there before sort of financial stuff got in the way, with having everybody in North Carolina or, A-Mart down in Florida, like things were kind of really coming together, as far as all that, and you look at what Jimmy D did with a few podiums, and, what we were able to get out of Chad, that last year, like he was, really, I felt like relevant that last year too, and doing good. Like that side of it was really, really, coming together, but then once kind of the money stuff started to happen, it changes the synergy, it changes kind of the flow, but we still kind of, we're still making things happen there the best we could. On a personal level, so sad for the sport. We don't need to lose any more teams. And then I had a lot of really good friends there. Jeremy Albrecht, I've grown up since, we were 12. And that guy hustled his butt off to try to make things happen. He truly, truly did, like on a very, very high level. And then, for me too, it's like Yuzo Takara, came from Yoshimura, moved back there as well. Renee Zapata, Dean Baker. I mean, there's so many guys that are just, you know, they're great for this sport, you know, and to have that kind of strain and stress and all that, you know, I feel for them. You know, I went through it. Fortunately for me, with it, you know, I knew in January, so I kind of got my gears switched pretty quick and came back to California, you know, because it was a tough move to Charlotte. Really, really tough. Family, all that. We had no family back there. So it was a tough move. And it seems like right when you start to get settled, then that comes out from underneath you, you know, and you're switching gears. But we were able to come back here. Fortunately, I think from what I've heard, you know, everybody's doing good with finding jobs. So that's the big thing. When you have a team come out from underneath you like that, you know, industry-wise, it sucks for riders and all that. But there's a lot of staff that are scrambling, you know. And I think it went from a space, from what I understand, where it's like, maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's over the summer, and then, you know, the rug got pulled out pretty quick. But, you know, just bummed for JGR, bummed for Coy. Coy is somebody that he's been just awesome for me and my family, all the way to when I was not hired from them and working with Weston. Like, he was just always great. And I know his passion is still there for the moto side of it, but, you know, it's hard to get these advertising dollars towards our sport right now, for sure.
Sounds like they would love to regroup and try again, but sometimes it's hard when it shuts down to turn it back on like that. So it's just, I mean, time will tell. Obviously, I think we'd love to all have them back. Like, it's a cool team. Always was. No matter who was on it, it was always cool.
Yeah, it's super cool, and their stuff always looked tight all the way to the you know, our kits that we wore in the pits, you know, besides the riders, like J-Bone was next level on all that stuff. And, you know, the atmosphere with those guys, you know, everybody truly was that bond and family, almost like that feel like we're talking about really family, Arenacross, like everybody, you know, enjoyed their time together, you know. So I hope they do. I truly, truly do. That hopefully they can do something and restructure and come back. I think that would be awesome.
Last question for you, kind of winding this thing down. We know what you're doing now. You're working with some of these younger riders. You're also doing camps at different places. I saw you're back in Carolina, Northern California. You're doing a lot of these things kind of loosely, a little bit of everything. Is there something moving into the future that you would want to do, or are you happy with what you're doing, or do you see a destination of where you'd like to steer yourself to get somewhere in this industry or not in this industry? I'm just curious long-term what you want to do. Or do you like what you're doing now and this is okay for now and you'll explore that when the time comes?
Yeah, you know, I think I'm industry for life, to be honest with you. Born and raised, and you, Daniel, you've been around at probably the same age as me, 3-4, right? You know, so a long time, and I don't know much else. So I know from my time at JGR and all that, I don't want to travel full schedules anymore. It's really tough. So, you know, I like the space where I'm going to the races and I'm getting things dialed in, but I'm also can spend a weekend at home or open up and do camps. I really want to try to broaden my ability to reach more students, you know, and pass on the techniques that I've learned over the years, the connection that I think was passed down from my father to be able to connect with kids, which I really like. Working with my dad was great at that. So, you know, going back to North Carolina, doing a camp back there with Daxton Bennick and some few kids. And then also coming up to Northern California, your neck of the woods, to Argyle MX. Club Moto is another track of theirs as well. So I'm, you know, wanting to try to just reach more people and enjoy what I can pass down. And then also keep that racing edge that I have with Brandon and Carson and Martine, you know, so that is the fun. You know, you never can say never of where you'll go as far as inside of the industry. But I know I truly enjoy coaching and want to kind of keep that going down the path it is, and do a little more camps on the weekends for sure.
Well, I got a 10-year-old. Good luck.
Hey, you know what? I guarantee you, I will guarantee you get him to me. When's his next big? You guys doing the spring nationals, anything like that? You're going to be full on.
I haven't decided whether we're doing the spring nationals or if everything's going on Craigslist. I haven't decided yet. We'll
okay. Well,
we have to get through Christmas. I don't know.
We can do another Beyond the Track next year, whatever. You give me 2 months before whatever race he's got coming to, at least trying to get once a week or every other week, something like that. I guarantee. I've seen him ride. You got some bones there for sure. I can't go Eli Tomac. He's going to make it, but there are some bones there.
You're going to have to find a way to get in here and change the jetting, man. There's some carburation issues going on with my little dude. I think he might be the only kid on the planet who's ever looped out off cement. Let's explain how that happened, and then good luck. That's all I'm saying. Not kidding. Looped out off the cement. And that was the moto after the moto before where he hit the gate and I pulled him back and then he hit it again in the same start in the gate.
That sounds like some stuff Vincent used to do.
I think he's more like Uncle Vincent than he's like his dad. That's for sure. Hey, buddy, thanks for coming on Beyond the Track. When I knew you were in the docket, I said, it's going to be a fun one for me. So good to see you, and I'll see you soon. Good luck with Brandon and Martine and Carson, and I can't wait to see you, man.
Thank you. You too, Daniel.